Hi everybody and welcome back. Dave Blinder from eXp Realty. Today's video, I want to show you one of the resources I use to check if a property potentially falls within a flood zone. I'm going to go ahead and maximize my Chrome browser window. And I'm already logged in as a Garden State MLS member and local Northern New Jersey realtor. Let's pull up a sample listing. So I'm going to punch in on 2 Hillside Avenue in Mine Hill, New Jersey. And this is a property I actually know very well. It's my colleague and friend Yvonne Gonzalez's listing. This one happens to be under contract, but that's not important for today's purposes. Off to the left side of the screen, we see a bunch of different options. I'm going to click on the tab labeled as tax data. That's going to load me directly into a third-party website that's labeled as State Information Services. So a nice splash screen here, which tells me a lot of information on the listing of the property for sale. And I'm going to click through to the tab labeled as Flood Map, kind of above and centrally on my screen. We're just going to give this a second to load. Sometimes this takes a bit of time. Okay, so we can see gradually we're loading into a really nice aerial view of this vicinity. And our subject property of 2 Hillside Avenue is identified with a blue tab or arrow kind of right in the middle of the property. And these borders should be our lot and blocks or parcels in the township of Mine Hill. Nice overview of the neighborhood. So my eyes are drawn right to this area above central on the screen. We can see the acronym of SFHA, which stands for Special Flood Hazard Area. And we can see that our property is told we are most decidedly not in the Special Flood Hazard Area. Now, of course, you should always verify that information with a local flood insurance specialist if you're not certain what the data means. And flood insurance will vary from lender to lender depending on what type of mortgage the buyer may be getting. So it's always important to verify this information and do your due diligence. Off on the left side of the screen, we've got a legend here which tells us about more of the potential flood zones, but in our case here, we don't see any flood zones very close to the property whatsoever, which is great news. But what if we start pulling out a little bit? Maybe we can see what a potential flood zone might appear as on this service. I'm just going to keep pulling back. Just give that a minute to load this nice aerial overview. Great, and we can see we have some major brooks and tributaries way off to the east of our subject property here. And what we're seeing is these riparian areas are identified with a blue wash on our flood zone map. And now if we cross-reference that blue coloration to the left side of our legend, we can see that's identified as a flood zone AE. And my understanding is a property with the structure imminently inside of that blue wash is most likely going to require flood insurance. But again, that should always be verified with a flood insurance specialist. This is just how we begin the process of researching, could the home potentially fall within a flood zone? If you don't happen to be a Garden State MLS member or not a realtor, there is some information publicly available on the web for you to look up if any properties around you should happen to fall within a flood zone. Just give me a moment as I maximize my browser window once again. So we're now looking at the Fema website, and I believe this is floodsmart.gov, which are public resources. They don't require a membership or a login of any sort. And if you go from floodsmart.gov and click on FEMA's flood map service, you can start accessing some of these public resources, kind of similar to what we just looked at. So you could potentially punch in your street address right here to see if a property that maybe surrounds you or you're interested in buying or you just want to research could fall within one of these flood zones. So again, nice resource, and your landing page there should be, let me just verify that for you, it is floodsmart.gov is how you get started on the FEMA's public website. There's just one more resource I wanted to share with you. This is a great chart in a downloadable PDF form of the different designations of FEMA flood zones, and then a detailed description of what that flood zoning entails. For example, we could examine flood zone AE, which may be found in certain riparian areas in certain wetlands within New Jersey. And we can read that flood zone AE may be subject to a 1% greater annual chance of flooding in any given year. So there's a detailed description on all of the various types of flood zones found throughout the FEMA flood maps. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. In the description of today's video, providing you the links for floodsmart.gov, FEMA's public resource on flood zones. I'm also providing you the link for that nice chart so you can read more about what the different types of flood zones actually mean. If you happen to need help buying or selling a home in New Jersey, I'd love to help you. Please reach out. Thanks, and I'll see you in my next video.